Hello, 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 and welcome everyone to the Real Life Gaze podcast. My name is Gareth, and I am joined by my co-host Lee. Lee, how are we doing?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing really well, thank you. Gareth, how are you, my lovely?
Great. Do you know, one of these days we're going to have to say that we're not doing very well, because if we say the same thing every episode. How are you doing? You want to say, I'm doing crap, I hate my life. One of these days. But anyway, I'm doing great. Thank you, as always, to everyone for subscribing to us, leaving comments. We really appreciate it. Make sure you're sending us messages on our socials, and of course, visiting our website, reallifegaze.com. This episode, we have decided to discuss homophobia, and we're going to discuss it in kind of two different ways. We're going to discuss homophobic abuse that we've received growing up, and maybe in our workplace, and even what we're still experiencing today, and also going to be discussing something called internalized homophobia. So we felt the best way to kind of discuss this would be to bring on a guest, and we have the lovely Scott. Hello, Scott.
Hey, girl. Hey.
So our friend Scott, we met Scott a couple of years ago now through TikTok, where we met most of our lovely people. And Scott is from America, and we thought it would be good to have someone on from a different part of the world, just to give.
It's actually pronounced America.
America.
Okay.
So Scott, before we go any further forward, could you just give our little listeners a little introduction, please?
My name is Scott. I don't like long walks on the beach. Exercise, ew. But no, I have been out. Actually, 2022 is 20 years that I've been out, and I've been with my partner for 13 years. And, you know, it's still a conversation that we have to have about homophobia. And I mean, I thought to myself, God, it's been 20 years that I've been out and proud, and we're still talking about this. I thought it would be over by now, but here we are. So that's me. Hi.
How old are you, Scott?
Oh, God, you never ask a lady her age. But I'm 35, but, you know, it's a podcast, so they can't see me. Hi.
So you came out when you were...
15.
15, okay. Yep.
Yep.
And you're from where?
I am originally from Southern California, and I now live in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Okay. So, first of all, to both of you guys, Lee and Scott, in your words, how would you summarize homophobia? Lee?
So, you know, it could be anything. It could be something like verbal, it could be physical, but it's anything that me as a gay guy, or anyone as a gay guy, or anyone from the LGBTQ community, something that makes you feel not very nice, you know, hearing or seeing or feeling these horrible feelings just because somebody else is verbalizing or attacking you in some type of way.
Yeah. Scott?
I mean, I look at homophobia as, for some reason, somebody has an issue with who I am or who other people are, and using hateful words or tone. I mean, tone is, as we all know, a huge way of using words, that they degrade you and they bring you down, and they put you in a position of self-doubt where you are who you are.
Yep. And
when people just get to that level of hate, I mean, I look at it, words matter. And I don't know. It's hard to describe, but I mean, we've all been through it, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And you feel like when people say things, even what could be a generalized normal word can have hate behind it, you know?
Yep. I mean, homophobia is, in simple terms, is the dislike of or prejudice against gay people. And for the purpose of just this podcast, it's about LGB only. You know, homophobia is, you know, for lesbians, gays and bisexuals. LGB community is the ones who experience homophobia. Also, other members of the queer community will experience certain types of discrimination, but not necessarily homophobia. So, yeah, any discrimination or prejudice we've received as gay guys, as you say, lesbians or bisexuals, is the simplest form of homophobia. So what I'm going to ask each of you is everyone listening to this, wherever you are in the world, or no matter how old you are, has experienced some level, I'm sure, of homophobia if you are part of our community. So coming to you, Scott, first, could you give us an example of some sort of homophobia that you've experienced throughout your life?
Well, I mean, a lot of the homophobia I experienced was in my formative years, which was in high school in America. Like you guys call it, secondary, school in the UK. But for me, it was high school. It was, always being somebody who was out and proud and still dealing with people who just because you didn't like me was no example that you should hate me. But I spent so many years of people call me a faggot, a fag, and I know that's a hard term for people in America. I know it's different in the UK with terminology, but hearing people calling me a faggot, it still haunts me. And it's been so many years, but in high school, it was getting slammed against a locker, people calling me out in class. And these are the years that you're supposed to be growing and learning, and you're spending all this time being hated. And it still stays with me, and I would never want anyone to ever have to go through that level of hate, because you want to grow up and you want to go through these things and enjoy your life and experience all that it has to offer. But I mean, it's been 20 years since I said, F you to people that hated me. And, Yeah.
So you came out in high school then?
Yep.
So we just FYI, we also do call it high school here.
Okay. Well, I mean, also, I've heard secondary. Leave me alone.
I mean, it is, primary and secondary, but yeah, primary and I would call it high school. So can you, although you're generalizing your whole kind of school life there when you came out at 15, but can you remember a specific event, whether it's in your high school years or later on in life, that you were attacked homophobically, either verbally or discriminated against because of your sexuality?
I remember, and I can still see it in my head. I remember walking down, from the student parking lot, which the way our school was set up, I remember just thinking to myself, you know what, today's going to be a good day. And it was a football player who saw me standing by my locker and just walked up and just shoved me against a wall and was like, what do you think about that, faggot? And I sit there and I think, I hope to God nobody ever has to go through that fear. Mm-hmm. That you don't have to go through that. You could be, because we all should be going to school to learn. We should all be going to school to grow. And it still stays with me. And I just, again, I hope that nobody ever has to go through that feeling. It's a fear that sticks with you.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's a hard feeling to go back into that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And that was after you had come out.
Yep.
And you were openly gay within these years. You were then picked on for your sexuality.
It was.
Lee, could you give us any examples from your childhood or adult life?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back. I think the main part of it is, similar to Scott, like through, say, senior school, obviously primary school, it wasn't really anything like that. No one knew who they were. But definitely through secondary school, and not necessarily, it's like the secondary school was the horrible years. Primary was fine. University was fine. Yeah, so I've never actually had any physical. I've not been beaten up or anything like that during my school years. So in a way, I've never really been unlucky enough to actually be physically hurt at all. But name calling, things like that, like you mentioned, faggot or queer. Well, actually, the other day, side note, the word queer, I think I actually Googled it because the LGBTQ community have kind of reclaimed that word, I think, have they?
Yeah.
So it's because I was talking about it at work the other day and they were like, oh, are we allowed to use that word? And I was like, and you mentioned tone earlier. I'm thinking, well, yeah, but it depends in which context you're using it. If you're calling someone being horrible to them and you use that word, then no. But if us three are sitting around a table and we go, cheers, queers, that's fine. But no, generally, never really had horrible. But I remember, Scott, what you're saying as well, those feelings, that fear of walking to school thinking, what's going to happen today? And most of the time it didn't happen. But then sometimes it would be running past a name calling. But it was always that fear, what else could happen?
Well, that's fair. I mean, that's totally fair. I mean, but the thing is that we have to remember is within our community, we still live with the fear and we still have to think, you know?
What about you, Gareth? Have you experienced any?
So I spoke about in one of our Real Life Gays YouTube episodes quite in depth about my bullying at high school to the point where it got a little bit too much for me. So I'm not going to kind of go back and talk about all that because it's just kind of reiteration what you are all saying, you know, the kind of fear that you have in school. I didn't come out, Scott, until I was 18. And I'm going to talk about a situation in university. So I left school when I was 17, going on 18, went to college for my first year. And then I went straight from college straight into second year in university. And I moved from, you know, my small area where I grew up to the capital of Scotland, Edinburgh. So, of course, Edinburgh being quite a busy city, it had a gay scene, but I wasn't out yet. I didn't come out for another 3 or 4 months after moving to Edinburgh, but I had all these new friends. I got very close to a girl called Shona, who was my best friend throughout university. And we're still close today, but she was my rock. And I remember this specific night, we all went on a student night out because, you know, all the clubs in Edinburgh had different nights where they had student night and you'd have like £1 or in your case, Scott, would be $1 drinks. And it was always a wild night. And I remember...
Gareth, I've learned the conversion rates, but thank you.
So maybe not quite $1. $2 nights for America.
It's actually much cheaper to go to the UK, but go on.
Oh yeah, there were. I don't know if they still do it now because that was ridiculously cheap. But there were messy nights, but there were always good nights because it was people that you knew because, you know, because of all university, and I was living in halls of residence, so, you know, student accommodation. So we all went out. And I remember being in a nightclub, and it wasn't a gay club, it was just a normal, popular nightclub in Edinburgh. And there was this boy called Mark, who was just beautiful. He was just a beautiful boy, and I knew I was gay, and I was checking him out quite a lot throughout my time in class. I was like, oh, he's really beautiful. And he was so friendly to me, and I thought, oh, he's actually really sweet. And he was in the nightclub that night with a couple of his friends, and there were, you know, laddie lads, you know, proper lads, or used to call maybe jocks, you know. And he came up to me and he said, nice to see you here. I hope you're having a good night. And he stroked my arm and said, you're looking really, really good tonight, and gave me a wink. And I thought, oh, what's going on? Can I hear? And I was like, oh, this is the first time in my life a boy has said that to me. And is he flirting with me? Is he not flirting with me? Should I be thinking like this? Should I not? And my mind was all over the place. I didn't really know what to do because, again, I wasn't out. And, you know, fast forward a couple of hours, he was on the dance floor. I was with my friend Shona and a few other friends. And Mark's friend came up to me and said, oh, Mark really likes you. And my friend Shona was like, Mark? Who's Mark? And I was like, him. She was like, oh, that's the boy that you've told me about, that he's really friendly. Do you like him? I was like, no, I don't like him. And, immediately the defense went up because, I'm not gay kind of thing. But I never said I wasn't gay. I was still trying to process what was happening here. This attractive boy is he flirting with me? And now his friend's telling me that he likes me. And he was like, yeah, you should totally go there, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And he was like, well, you know where he is? He's over there. He told me to come and tell you. And I was just, trying to process this, going, am I going to have my first kiss tonight? Or am I eventually going to have to come out? Because how can I pass up an opportunity like this? And I'm chatting to Shona, going, I don't know what to do. And she was like, you don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. And I look over after having, lots of conversations and lots of, thoughts in my head going through this dilemma I'm going through here. And Mark's kissing a girl on the dance floor. And I'm just kind of standing there looking, going, I'm really confused just now. And I said to Shona, look, he's kissing a girl. Like, is he straight? And then I look over and his friends pointing over to me and laughing at me. And I then realized that I am a joke. Like they've wound me up. And I was like, obviously alcohol didn't help. I was very, very emotional, very hysterical. I was like, I need to go. We need to go back to our rooms, blah, blah, blah. And we got back, and that was the night I came out to Shona. The first person I ever came out to was during a hysterical, pity party, because these guys who I thought were my friends, or, who was being nice to me, it was all part of some sort of scheme to make me look like an idiot and make me think this boy would like me, but in fact he wasn't, and he got with someone of the opposite sex in front of me. And I don't know why to this day he did that, because I thought he was actually just a genuinely nice person, but they just wanted to humiliate me. But the good thing that came out of that is that it forced me out of my closet. And once I told Shona, it was like a massive weight was lifted off my shoulder. And then I came out to my parents, blah, blah, blah. And it gave me the push I needed, but it was still such a traumatic experience for me, because I thought I'd left that kind of childish homophobia behind in school. I didn't really experience it during my year at college. So going into university, especially in Edinburgh, where I thought, well, I felt safe. I felt, I've arrived, I can be who I wanted to be. And then here I was, a victim of, almost like, I don't say a victim of abuse, but, I was being taunted by these guys.
Well, it was like an emotional abuse, isn't it? They were, emotionally abusing you, because one minute they're making you feel all happy and good, and then smack you in the face with a visual, and they're laughing at you. It was
the going from being so high to being like, this boy who's attractive is liking me. And, thinking, is tonight going to be the best night of my life, to then be one of the worst nights? I mean, I'd suppressed all this when we were, discussing what we were going to be talking about during this episode. That memory came back to me. I kind of suppressed all that. And I remembered about it, and I was like, oh my God, how did I forget that? And it was awful. But as I said, I can thank him now, all these years later, because it did give me that push to come out and be like, an attractive boy can be interested in me without taking, the piss out of me. I can find someone. And I did, have a good time after that in my student days. But
I mean, but Gareth, you also have to remember that as uplifting, pardon me for being a realist in some ways, it's just, those things do scar you. They really shape how you approach relationships going forward. And it's not relationships with a partner, but like with family and friends, of like, when somebody does you dirty, you take a step back and you look at these situations where you're like, and I've been screwed over before, so
it gives you trust issues.
I've got a couple of questions. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I've got some questions.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was just that kind of reminder that although I'm in a new city where being gay isn't as frowned upon, and I'm older now, I'm with different kind of people from different backgrounds, it was a reminder, a bit of a shock to the system, that hang on here, I'm still not safe to be who I am.
Yeah.
And that was a sad time, but at the same time, I can focus on the positives that it did, make me come out of the closet and accept who I am, even though you would think it would do the opposite. But I think it's because I was just so emotionally kind of drained from it that I was.
You were also young.
I was 18 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've all been young in those vulnerable circumstances where, when somebody starts giving you attention, I mean, what are we, blithely unaware that, nothing bad could happen from this. And there you go.
Yeah.
But you learn from it, and you hope that you do, learn that's just, people can be just awful. And that's the sad thing is people can be so awful.
And this leads me on to, the next part of our conversation, everything we've spoke about going through high school and these experiences, even, in university, and even the experiences we feel now in the workplace and in your general life. I'm going to then talk about internalized homophobia, which could be the result of all these things. And there's this great website called the Rainbow Project that I think sums up internalized homophobia really well. So I'm just going to read a little extract from it. So it says here, as we grow up, we are taught the values of our society. In our homophobic, heterosexist, discriminatory culture, we may learn negative ideas about homosexuality and same-sex attraction. Like everyone else, lesbian, gay, and bisexual people may be socialized into thinking that being non-heterosexual is somehow mad, bad, wrong, or immoral. This can lead to feelings of self-disgust and self-hatred. These feelings can lead to internalized homophobia, also known as internalized oppression. Internalized homophobia and oppression happens to gay, lesbian, and bisexual people, and even heterosexuals who have learned and been taught that heterosexuality is the norm and the correct way to be. Hearing and seeing negative depictions of LGBT people can lead us to internalize or take in these negative messages. Some lesbian, gay, and bisexual people suffer from mental distress as a result. And it's interesting because it says here that a study back in 2012, the average age, people said they realized their sexual orientation was 12, but the average age of people coming out was 17. And it's those years in between realizing your sexuality and coming to terms with it enough to come out is when all this internalized homophobia comes about, because we're taught and brought up that being gay is something to be picked on, it's something to be laughed at. And this moves on to asking you guys,
Gareth, honestly, when did you hit puberty? What year? When did your hormones start kicking in? Let's be honest.
13?
Okay. Lee, when did your hormones kick in?
Yeah, probably similar, 12 or 13.
Okay, same here. All right. So that 12 to 17 age range, we all know, tough years, regardless of our sexuality, right? Those years, you're not just figuring out like how it all works, as we know, but you're now figuring out, I don't fit the heteronormative norm, and 17, awesome. 12, awesome. But I think we ultimately have to remember that we're facing, or we did face, the years of puberty, tough years. We all know, tough years.
Okay.
But then we're also facing, I'm not what you expect. I am
different.
not somebody who is going to fit your societal norms.
Yeah.
And we're facing this whole issue of it's okay to not fit into the standard. And it's still the same. We've all been out how many years, but people are still facing that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it is getting better, but we all grew up very similar times. So I'm going to read a few of these examples, and I want you to, after I've said them all, to then tell me which ones you would say you've experienced yourself. So this says here, internalized homophobia manifests itself in various ways that can be linked to people's mental health. Examples include denial of your sexual orientation to yourself and others, attempts to alter or change your sexual orientation, feeling you are never good enough, engaging in obsessive thinking and or compulsive behaviors, underachievement or even overachievement as a bid for acceptance, low self-esteem, negative body image, contempt for the more open or obvious members of the LGBT community, contempt for those at earlier stages of the coming out process, denial that homophobia, heterosexism, biphobia, or sexism are serious social problems, contempt for those that are not like ourselves, or contempt for those who seem like ourselves, sometimes distancing by engaging in homophobic behaviors like ridicule, harassment, verbal or physical attacks on other LGBT people, projection of prejudice onto another target group, becoming psychologically abused or abusive, or remaining in an abusive relationship, attempts to pass as heterosexual, sometimes marrying someone of the opposite sex to gain social approval in hope of being cured, increased fear and withdrawal from friends and relatives, shame or depression, defensiveness, anger or bitterness, school truancy or dropping out of school, Also, workplace absenteeism or reduced productivity. Continual self-monitoring of one's behaviours, mannerisms, belief to appear more heteronormal. Clowning as a way of acting out society's negative stereotypes around gay people. Mistrust and destructive criticism of LGBT community leaders. Reluctance to be around or having concern for children for fear of being seen as a paedophile. Conflicts with the law. Unsafe sexual practices and other destructive risk-taking behaviours, including risk for HIV and other STIs. Separating sex and love, or fear of intimacy, sometimes lower lack of sexual drive or celibacy. Substance abuse, including drinking drugs, and thinking about suicide, attempting suicide, or death by suicide. So there was a lot there that I ticked a lot of those boxes myself. I don't know about you guys. Lee, what about you first of all?
I don't know, people might say differently, close people in my life, but I don't think I've ever had really any of them. When you mentioned about internalized homophobia, so I'm thinking, am I homophobic towards myself? The only thing that kind of came forward is, say if I were back in the day, younger days, and I was getting ready to go out and I was putting on an outfit, and I would depending on where I was going, if I knew I was going to a gay bar, then I would wear one type of clothes. If I knew we were just going to a straight club, I'd wear a different type of clothes. So gay bar back in the day, we're talking a good 20 plus years ago now, like ripped jeans and everything else. And I literally loved them. I had more holes in them than anything else. I used to wear crop tops. When I had hair, I used to dye it all different colours. I used to go out in drag and stuff like that. But then there was that fear of, what if someone saw me, not anyone that I know, I was quite open with family, friends and everything, but I would be making a conscious effort all the time, even day to day, walking to school, of don't be this person and shoulders back and look, here I am. Be the one that is head down, possibly semi-withdrawn. But then I was like a class clown in school, my reports apparently said. But was that like a defense mechanism? Oh, let me make fun of myself, or, let's laugh and joke to distract you from Lee, the gay guy, to, I'll make you laugh.
But that would be the one I mentioned here, continual self-monitoring of one's behaviours, including your mannerism. If you were checking yourself when you were walking down the street so you didn't look as gay, that is one of those things that you either subconsciously still do now. I know I do. And a lot of the time it is conscious. I don't want to appear gay. So even when I'm speaking to people that I know are, full on straight guys, I speak a little bit deeper. I put on a little bit more of a masculine appearance, and I check myself when I'm out walking with friends and I see a group of guys or a group of young kids of both genders that look a little bit intimidating. I check myself. I make sure I don't appear as an easy target, because that's what I've been used to all my life. So it's a constant thing that I go through, and I'm sure lots of other people do as well, of checking yourself because you're wanting to protect yourself. So there's an element of fear there, but there's the same time as well, there's this internalized homophobia that we've been brought up this way, that we're different and we're easy targets.
I mean, you also have to remember that, as somebody who's been called ma'am multiple times on the phone, hi, ma'am, I'd like to talk to you about, upgrading your, auto insurance. I'm like, okay, I'm not a ma'am, but thank you. But the thing is, Gareth, your whole list of what you just read off, all I heard was disappointment of the expectations of who we're supposed to be and what society expects us to be. Now, can we be proud of who we are? 1,000%. Yes, we can. But when you hear those things, it's just this weird, awful reminder that people are literally just, they have these expectations about who we're supposed to be. And it's a sad reminder.
Yep.
And you're sitting there and you hear it and you're like, oh, I thought I put that one away in a box. Look, here we are.
Well, and it's people, like, obviously we've got some people now, especially celebrities who have been with their, wives or whatever for many years, coming out as gay. And obviously it was a different time when they were younger. But even when I was younger, I had a girlfriend for almost 2 years because that was my mask, and I felt like if I appeared to be straight, they would leave me alone. I would be able to be classed as normal. And I mean, it's sad when I think back about that now, but it would be interesting to know if this still happens now. And it must still happen because there's lots of reasons why people feel like they can't be themselves, whether it's religious reasons or whatever reasons. This must still happen.
It does still happen. And, that's the sad part is that for a lot of, in the US, there's still a justification for, quote, heteronormacy, and people will still say that, oh, it's a sin. Oh, it's gross. Oh, it's wrong. Oh, it's, you shouldn't live this way. It's like, really?
Yeah.
I'm the problem. Am I the drama, right? Like as that TikTok sound, am I the drama? But like, no. And the thing is that the drama comes from the people who want to create drama, not the people who are just trying to find some sense of normalcy and trying to find some sense of, I belong just as equally as the rest of you. Yeah. And I should be able to live my life. Like you guys should be able to live your life. Like everyone should be able to live their life. Like, hi, nice to see you, fellow human. How are you on the street? And just mosey on with your day. But people always find a way to create an issue when there's no issue that needs to happen.
Yep.
And we still face it, sadly, as even though we're getting older, which gays never admit they get older. Thanks, Botox.
What I also find interesting, though, within the gay community, and I've spoke to many people who feel this way, is homophobia within the gay community itself. Because a lot of people are uncomfortable around other gay people who are over the top camp because they feel that it's either an act or it plays into the stereotypical gay person that was portrayed in the media all these years that give gay people a bad name, that makes us look predatorial towards straight men. And I find it very interesting because when I was in school, as I said, I didn't come out until I left school, but I remember this boy coming out probably just before I left. So he was probably 16, possibly 17 at the time. He came out and it was like a light switch. He went from being, naturally feminine like myself to being over the top camp. And I hated him for it at school. I hated him. I was like, what are you doing? You're making it difficult for people like me because everyone is hating how you're acting. Not everyone, that's a generalization. You had a lot of girlfriends around him and you had a lot of friends, but the other people in the school are like, oh, look at him, the big poof or the fag or whatever. Don't ever turn out like him, blah, blah. And even someone I knew as well, who were like, oh, if you ever come out as gay, by the way, please tell me you'll never act like that. And the fact that I remember feeling that way, I'm so ashamed because I know people and I'm friends with people who are as camp as Christmas. And I can 100% hand on heart say they are not acting. The person he was before was the act. He was suppressing his natural flamboyancy to appease society's expectations of what he should act as a male. And he was probably protecting himself from fear of abuse. And I thought, do you know what? Looking back now, I should have befriended him or applauded him for what he did because he maybe created a path for other people, maybe younger than him, to then come out and follow in his footsteps. I wasn't brave enough to do that. So I get angry at myself. Even now when I see other, extremely camp people, why does it bother me? It shouldn't bother me at all, but it bothers so many gay people.
Well, Gareth, you have to remember is that, there is a lot of compensation that comes from people that have been through a lot of struggles. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is they're trying to compensate for a lot of pain and a lot of lack of acceptance. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to prove themselves. And they are trying to just show the world that, and it might seem excessive to some, and it might seem like over the top, but what they're doing is they're basically just trying to prove I am somebody. I am who I am. And it's the struggle and the pain that is fueling what I'm doing. And if anything, just talk to those people. You can never ever expect to be like that person. All you can do is have the conversation, talk to them, and learn from them. Why do you do what you do? Why are you expressing yourself in these ways? And that's just what everyone should do, whether they be gay, straight, non-binary, whatever. Just talk to somebody. Life is a conversation. And just see, why do you do what you do?
I think, especially for myself, I mean, I think there's been a big shift in my life over the past few years about being confident and comfortable in my skin. It's like, years ago, when I was a lot younger, I was a lot slimmer. I look back at photos now and I was like, Jesus Christ, I look ill. I was that skinny. But back then, I still thought I looked fat. I was trying to fit into the slim, petite, gay man. But now, the weight and the body that I've got now is probably twice as heavier as him back then. I'm never going to have a 32-inch waist.
Girl can dream. Let's be honest.
But I also think like certain friends, certain people that have been in my life over the years have been able to give me the confidence to walk into a bar. One of my friends actually said to me, we were in this bar and we were going to sit. And I said, let's go and sit over there in the corner. And that's where I would always go, in a corner, back against the wall like this. And she's like, no, we'll go here. The table right near the dance floor in the middle of the whole pub. And I was like, really? And ever since that day, and this is probably 10 plus years ago, probably even longer, my friends, the people close to me, they give me the courage to be the person I am today. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, sometimes I do have a bit of a fear. But now I've got a little bit more protection. So I'm not walking down the street because I drive. So I'm blaring my Gloria Gaynor or whatever, and I can just zoom off. So it's little things like that. I've got the car as a bit of a protection. And I was actually walking down the street the other day. I'd just come out of the gym and the swimming and everything out, and all I had was joggers and a vest up and trainers, and I had to go to the cash point. So I parked up and literally got out of the car, went to the cash point, and I would I wouldn't have walked from my house to the cash point dressed like that, because in my mind I would think everyone would know that I'm gay. But even if I wore a polar neck, a cap, a mask and everything, I'm sure people would still know that I was gay. But yeah, I was at this cash point and two girls walked past and were like, oh, hi. Oh, I really like your tattoos. And I was like, thanks. And I was like, how nice. Initially, I was thinking, oh, God, there's kids walking past, what they're going to say. And I was like, oh, thanks. And then just got in the car and drove.
You just automatically assume it's going to be abuse. Yeah. Like it's very interesting to me because, when I was doing some research about internalized homophobia, it's everywhere. And I think it is pretty much impossible for a gay person, especially growing up in the UK and Ireland, to not have internalized homophobia. Like it's just, I would say it's impossible. In some shape or form, in our age range, as I said, it would be really interesting to talk to someone younger, like a teenager, to see if they're still feeling this way. Because although things have progressed dramatically just now, there's still not equality everywhere. And yes, there's gays left, right, and centre. It's still not the same. And there's this thing here on the withtherapy.com website, which does talk about mainly America-based, but it says mental health, homophobia and homosexuality. And I'll read this out here. The mental health concerns that arise from internalized homophobia are often layered on top of other mental health issues that are common within the LGBTQ plus community. According to a 2017 study by the American Psychiatric Association, LGBTQ people are twice as likely as heterosexual people to have a mental health disorder in their lifetime. Additionally, gay people are 2.5 times more likely to experience depression, anxiety disorder as substance use disorders, and 4 times more likely to attempt suicide during adolescence, and 3 times more likely as adults. These higher rates of mental illness are thought to be due to the greater risk these communities face for bullying, discrimination, verbal and physical abuse, and childhood sexual abuse. And it says here, within the last 50 years, the psychological community has worked hard to recognise the unique mental health needs of LGBTQ plus people. Before the 70s, the American Psychiatric Association classified homosexuality as a psychiatric disorder that needed to be corrected. Today, though, the mental health problems of LGBTQ plus people generally are treated with acceptance and affirmation of their sexual identity. Even so, mental health providers aren't completely immune to social bias, including internalized homophobia. Therefore, it is important to seek out a therapist to discuss any issues that you may have. But I mean, it's just kind of, I completely agree with it.
As an American, I'm not going to sit there. Yeah, the struggle's real.
I mean, I didn't even need to ask that to know that's true.
The struggle is real. And, you know, I mean, sadly, I will be honest. And you know what the biggest impact that affects the LGBT, for you guys, it's different. Every country has a different thing. But for us, it's the LGBTQIA+. But do you know what affects it the most? Religion. Religion tells you that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Religion tells you that no, God doesn't see you as equal, but yet we're all supposed to be God's children.
Yeah. Why do you think that in some states in America are supportive of, you know, us as a community and some aren't? And would you say that's mainly due to religion?
It is. My partner and I, we went and saw, and if anyone listening and you guys, check out Fran Leibowitz. Love her. She's a lesbian. Bless her. She was big in the 70s in New York. But, you know, she had said in her talk when we saw her live, she had said, people just don't want to change. They don't want to change. They don't want to accept change. They don't want to face it. They don't want to deal with the ramifications of their own personal growth. And trying to accept a change is hard for people, you know? And I mean, you guys, bless you, you know, with your conversations and the conversations you've had, is you're bringing awareness to conversations that a lot of people had no clue.
Yeah.
But it only takes a little bit of time to get to know different people of different backgrounds, different, you know, who they are.
Ignorance is not bliss.
But some people just don't want to change.
No.
They don't want to change. And
right.
For them, it's easy to just shut everything down and not have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's more of, say, like a generational thing? Do you think in another 20 or 30 years that it could be better?
I hope.
We hope, yeah.
I mean, I'm cautious. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I mean, we have to remember that we live on the edge of a knife in our community, and that's all of us in our community. We live on the edge of the knife because just because you're given something doesn't mean that it can't be taken away just as easily, you know. And
yeah,
I'm thankful that we have so many ardent supporters and allies and people that will speak on our behalf while we speak about ourselves. I don't know.
That if you think about it, though, like I just said in that article there, it was only the 70s where being gay was classed as a mental disorder.
Well, I mean, but
crazy.
Gareth,
it's not that long ago.
But Gareth, I don't want to interrupt you, but I mean, in England and the UK, it was illegal to be gay.
I know, and it wasn't that long ago.
I recently rewatched the Jeremy Thorpe thing, you know, a very English scandal, you know, about, you know, things that happened. Like, to think that, and the hardest thing for me watching that was the way that the characters re-represented that look of disgust, that look of, we're never going to talk about this again.
Yeah. We
are never going to address this again. But that look of like who you are, it's disgusting. And that was the 60s.
But this is your question of, in 30 years later, will it be better? But you have to think of what we've achieved and how far we've come in 50 years, 30 years even. It's an amazing achievement to get to where we are just now. So if things keep progressing the way they are, I'm hoping we don't have to have these conversations anymore.
But we will, and that's a sad thing.
So Scott, what support is available in America for someone that might feel that they are gay, but also feel that they have to hide their true self, and any support networks that you're aware of and that you could recommend?
So depending on who you are, there is a hotline. So if you want to send anyone my way, there is a hotline that you can call. For those who are underage that might be listening, there is the Trevor Project, which is an amazing amazing support group of people that help at-risk, underage, LGBTQIA+ youth. There's also the Matthew Shepard Foundation that provides you with resources. But yeah, there are groups and people who will be there to help you. And they're not just, you have to call a number. You can also text. I mean, I know that as we grow, some people don't want to call. They want to text. And they have certain hotlines set up that you can just have a conversation if you are in need of help.
Amazing.
What we could possibly do is just put a few links for
we will. Yeah.
American site help sites, support sites, and UK.
We'll do the same for here. Yeah, because like I said, I quoted a couple of websites there, and a lot of these have information about online therapists or support groups that you can discuss to help you. Yeah, then that's why we do this podcast. Let's be honest. So, Scott, also in America, is the justice system supportive to the LGBT community in relation to homophobia that you know of?
Sadly, it's a state by state basis. It's a really hard thing because I haven't been to certain states. I haven't lived in certain states.
Well, what's your state like, for example?
Virginia is very progressive. It's very open-minded. I'm originally from California, which is very, equal rights.
Yeah.
But, it's a hard situation to understand because everything can change at the drop of a dime, as we say in America, and recently the biggest issue coming out of Florida was the Don't Say Gay bill. And you sit there and you think you're in America, which we are land of the free, home of the brave, as I say in air quotes. I forget we're on a podcast here, but is you sit there and you think this is happening in 2022.
Yeah.
And laws are being passed of you just don't say gay. And you just kind of wonder, and again, we live on the edge of a knife, it feels like, of what's going to happen in the future. Where are we going to go? And I can't speak for you guys in England or Scotland or any other different country, but I can speak on behalf of America that it's a cluster F, and we just don't know where it's going to go. But when you start seeing states saying, don't use gay, what's going to happen? It's hard. It's actually sad, ultimately.
So what would someone describe themselves then if they're not allowed to use the word gay?
Well, they use it as, the thing is, ultimately they're trying to silence people, and they're trying to silence people not using an adjective, right? Yeah. Like we don't walk have you guys ever walked around your flat and said, I'm gay, 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 I'm gay? No, you wake up, you face your day, and you do what you do. But you don't ever have to think about it now as we get older of this is a description of yourself. You are who you are. And this is just, it's you. And that's amazing of who you are. But there's literally a state saying, don't use that word. Madness. How is that supposed to help anybody?
It's not.
So, but it's America, as Gareth said at the beginning. America.
Well, it's different in the UK as well. I'd like to automatically think that the justice system would be on our side no matter what. But, not that long ago, 2015, you had those 4 poor boys that were killed by the grinder killer, as he was called, the Stephen Port case. And they did a whole TV show about it recently on BBC. And it was failings by the Metropolitan Police because of their views against gays. And, they always put their hands up and say it wasn't anything homophobic about it, but there were failings by the police that could have prevented some of those murders. And, the witness accounts from friends and family of the boys there said the police just didn't care because of their sexuality and their prejudices that they had against them. So whilst I'd like to think if anything happened now, we would be a little bit better and learn from our past mistakes, but we just don't know and hope. We just have to hope.
The thing is that you guys do live in a country that ultimately you have protections. You have things that will keep you safe, keep you healthy. But I mean, you ask about the US, there are some states in the US that can be just as vile as, the Middle East, countries that are like, it's illegal. And you just have to sit there and think, let me just count my blessings. This is, terrible news, but still blessing. Still, you know what I mean?
It's hard to put America into one kind of category in one box. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My final question would be, what do we all think needs to change to help us get rid of our internalized homophobia? I mean, is it just in simple cases the words of RuPaul, if you can't love yourself, how the hell you're going to love anybody else? Can I get an amen up in here?
Amen, girl.
Am I just supposed to say yas and like we snap our fingers and
Well,
like,
exactly.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
If only it was that simple. Do I think I'll ever stop checking myself? No. Do I think I'll ever be comfortable enough to hold whoever I'm dating or in a relationship with hand in public? No, I don't think I will. Will I ever stop hating my voice, how I sound, because people know I'm gay before I even tell them? Because
I'm sorry, Gareth. Gareth, have you ever been called ma'am on the phone?
Many, many times.
And that's why I think Gareth and I are friends.
Yeah,
we can celebrate that pain.
I mean, speaking of internalized homophobia, I forgot to add this about my voice. My mom will tell you this. My mom got private healthcare with one of her jobs years ago. And I went to my mom and dad and said, I want to go to the doctor. I hate my voice. There's something wrong with my voice. I don't think it's broken yet. I just hate it. This is before I was out. So I would have been 14-ish or something. I'm sure my mom would be able to confirm my age, but I was young. And we went to the ear, nose and throat specialist, and the guy put a camera down my throat, did all these tests, and he said, there is nothing wrong with your voice. It's just your voice. And I was like, but has it broken yet? And he was like, yes. I was like, this is just how you sound. And I was so upset because I was like, great, for the rest of my life, people are going to be thinking I'm my mum on the phone or my sister, or I'm a girl, or they're going to know I'm gay before I tell them. And I hated it. And this was back at probably the height of my bullying. And I just thought, I want to sound normal. I don't want a gay voice. I don't want I can change how I act and walk, but I can't change my voice. And I hated it. Absolutely hated it. And I still don't really like listening to my voice, but doing the podcast and the shows and listen to myself back, I'm getting better at it, but I hate it because I hate how gay it sounds. Do I think I'll ever accept it? I don't know. I hope so.
Well, you should, because, I mean, honestly, your voice is exotic compared to us Americans. And so's Lee. Like, you guys have an exotic accent compared to the rest of us yahoos in America.
Well, I just think, like you're saying, Gav, would you ever be able to accept or not ever internalize homophobia, like with yourself and this, that, and the other? And I've probably got about a good 10 years on you, and I'm not as harsh on myself now than I was, say, 10 or 15 years ago. And I couldn't tell you what I've done or how I've done it. But like you said, you've got supportive friends, family around you, and that helps a lot. They give you the courage. They give you just being there and supporting you. And then before you know it, it's 10 years later, and I've not ever been homophobic towards myself or anything like that any time recently in the past 5 or 6 years or anything like that. So
do you just think it might just come with experience and keeping yourself surrounded by positive people who support you no matter what is going to help that kind of just naturally die out?
Yeah, I think so.
I really hope it's true. And I think lots of people who are part of our community will agree with everything we've talked about, because we all do it. And we're all judgy, bitchy people who look at that camp boy over there. He walks too funny. Look at what he's wearing. We just have to try our best to stop being so judgy within our community and support each other. Support the queens, support the mask gays, everyone. We've all been through enough shit in the world to then start turning on each other. And like I say, I really hope that my own internalized homophobia disappears, because there might be younger people who don't experience what we've experienced, who don't have any of this, who never check themselves, and they're just completely 100% their authentic self. That's brilliant if that is the case. But as people who are in our 30s and 40s, we have to we've got a harder journey because we are fighting against all the oppression that we dealt with and all the abuse that we had throughout our years. So that's a lot of trauma to get over in a lot of time. As you see, Lee, give me another 10 years, I'll be where you are, and that's what I've got to keep holding on to.
Preach, girl.
Preach.
I mean, you have to just hold on to the fact that sometimes you put things in a box and you store it because for some reason or another, that experience is going to help somebody, and it's what we have to do.
Yeah,
we can't always let it go.
So, I mean, we got quite deep in this episode here, but
I'm sorry.
No, but I knew it was going to be because we're all talking about kind of traumatic things. But before we go, we do have to do one more thing, Scott. We do this thing where we spin a wheel.
Oh God! Oh my God! Do I finally get to see Lee in the gold dress?
In the golden dress, Tiff comes out.
Everybody else has to imagine.
We are back to Would You Rather.
Hold on, then. I'm ready.
Here we go. Spin the wheel, Tiff. Oh, here we go. Right. Oh, this is quite deep. Okay. So it goes with the theme of the evening. Would you rather, and this is quite a common would you rather know when you were going to die or how you were going to die? Because you're our guest, Scott, you go first.
Oh my God, thank you so much for being so generous.
This is a hard one, I think.
When or how? I would go with when. Just so maybe I could prepare for like letting it not happen.
Trying to prevent. You're going to be in a plane crash. You just never go on a plane again.
I'm never getting on a plane ever. No.
Okay.
If it was wet, that's a how, though, isn't it?
No, if he's yeah, I suppose that would be a how, yeah. So if it said, how could you prevent it though? If it said you're going to die in 2030, you'd be like, how could you prevent that?
I'm not getting on any form of public transportation.
But it could be a heart attack. You wouldn't know because you didn't ask for how. You asked for when.
You know, honestly, if I die on my couch in a Zoom call, that's just the way it's meant to be. But I'm not leaving my couch.
Okay, Lee?
I think I would do a how.
Oh, why?
Because at the minute, I don't really know when I'm going to die, so I don't really want to know.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to wonder how. Would it be alcohol related? Would it be car crash? Would it be dying in bed, old age, on my own? Or
well, this is the thing as well. See, if you went for how and it said you died in your sleep, you could automatically assume it's because you're then old. So you then put two and two together and go, well, actually, it's going to be in a long time.
And I've got a list of people I'm going to haunt, so...
don't we all? Don't we all? Mine's is that Mark from university. No, I'm totally over it. I think I would go with when, because I think if I found out I was going to die in maybe 2 years' time, I would pack my job in and I would be like, right, I have 2 years left on this earth. I'd like to fit it all in, what I want to do, what I want to see. If it said I'm going to die in 50 years' time, I'd be like, oh, girl, I've got plenty of time to take my time. You know, keep working in a job I don't love, keep blah, blah, blah. Whereas I think if I put a timeline on my life, I can plan it better to make sure I don't miss anything off my bucket list. So that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
You see?
I mean, honestly, if anything, just spending money. Because honestly, it's paid for, it happens, you're gone. It's fine.
Well, also, if they told me I was going to die in 2 days, I would go and rob a bank just to rob a bank. Because, hello, I'm going to be dead anyway in 2 days.
Then you'd end up in prison.
Not in 2 days. Oh, I mean, this question's, it could go on forever. But Scott, before we go, where can people find you?
Honestly, you can find me on the TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
I am quarantine_Queenie on TikTok. Facebook and Instagram is basically just sharing my TikToks. So
your main social platform is TikTok, quarantine_Queenie.
Yes, it is. So yeah, no, it's for me, it's all about support, love, laughs, and you're never alone. And my hashtag, if I had one, would be always be you, because you're amazing and never change.
So yeah, that has been our homophobia and internalized homophobia episode. But as always, if you want to get in touch with us, please use our website, reallifegays.com. You'll have all our links to our socials, and use our get in touch page just to give us your own experiences, because we love hearing from you. So yeah, thank you very much as always for tuning in, guys. We will see you next week. Thank you very much, Scott, for your time. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Scott.
Love you guys. And
Love you too.
all.
I've been Gareth.
And I've been Lee.
I'll see you next time. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.